Welcome to Glazed Over,
a podcast for business tips, painting tricks, and gabbing with friends.
We're your hosts, Amy Williams
and Christine Steele, and we're so glad you're here.
Hey, Christine.
Hi, Amy. How are you?
I'm so good. How are you?
I'm doing great today. I am so excited about today's episode.
Same. I have a giant coffee nearby because the theme of today's episode is adding a coffee bar into your studio. This is something that I feel like has popped up over the last, 5, 6 years or so, maybe more. And I think it's such a good idea. And I don't know if you've ever been interested in doing that.
I have not, but I'm excited because after today, I might. I can't wait. We have the wonderful Sherry here with Scott from Meg-Art, and I can't wait. Teach me all the things. Do you want to start with getting to know you more, I guess, before we jump in with all the information about the coffee bar?
Yeah. Hi, Sherry.
Hi.
Good morning.
Hey, good morning.
Tell us a little bit about y'all.
I'm Sherry, and that's my husband, Scott.
Good morning.
And we're in Huntersville, North Carolina, and we have Meg-Art Pottery Studio. We've been in business for 27 years, 27 and a half. We opened in May of 97. And we put the coffee bar in, I believe it was our 10th anniversary.
It's been that long?
Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome.
Wow.
Yeah, it was
and
kind of like
have you
our
been
10th
in this
anniversary.
Wow. Have you been in the same building this whole time?
No, we moved in 2008 to the building that we're in now.
Wow. So you moved PYOP and the coffee in 2008.
Yep.
That's awesome.
Wow. How did y'all get into you mentioned kind of before we started recording that Scott was a little bit of the mastermind behind the coffee. Mm-hmm. What led you here?
Basically, we were going and buying coffee every day. And it was something that I was like, I think I could do this.
Yeah.
So then I started researching espresso machines and lattes, and from someone that really had no clue. It was really exciting to kind of learn a completely different idea, learning about different espresso machines and how coffee gets roasted. And it just kind of started small from learning to thinking, wait a minute, maybe we should actually add this to the studio. It basically was from going and buying coffee from a coffee shop every day, and then it always being different. And then you're like, I really want to make this.
Yeah. How long do you think that process was from being like, okay, I think I could do this, to researching to getting it in? How long was that?
We probably spent, I would say, at least 6 months. I mean, this has been quite a few years ago. When I first bought our espresso machine, I was not wanting to spend a huge amount of money because I didn't know if it would actually pay for itself, or would this just be a very expensive coffee making endeavor. So I found a used coffee machine off of eBay that had actually only been used for a few months. So it was practically new. From that point, we didn't have any place at our studio for it, so we brought it home, and then I plumbed in some water to it and ran power up into the kitchen to where this giant espresso machine sat on our counter for months on end while we tried to figure out how to make espresso.
Yeah, it was interesting
Yeah.
because it's big. It was from an actual coffee shop, and it's the one that we still use today. It's an actual.
Really?
Yeah, it's a Nuova Simonelli. And
what's the maintenance on that machine like?
I have it down pretty good now. We're getting to where parts are becoming harder and harder to find because the unit's so old. It took me a few years to kind of get an understanding of how everything worked. But maintenance-wise, it's pretty. I mean, as long as you get a really good unit from a reputable manufacturer, they're extremely reliable. I probably have repaired it a few times, but nothing major has ever really happened to it. It's always been small little things. Fittings or solenoids, or really don't know if everybody knows what all the little parts are, but yeah, I got it.
It sounded fancy.
It did.
Yeah, I can take it apart and put it back together.
Nice. Yeah, I guess that's all that matters.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, just general cleaning and changing out gaskets and stuff like that are the norm that you have to do.
So how much space in your studio is dedicated to your coffee area?
I would say, so it's sitting on a counter, and there's cabinets underneath. There's 3 drawers and 3 cabinets that hold supplies. And then we have a shelf back in our kiln room. And then the coffee bar counter is probably 10 feet long.
It's
probably not very big.
Yeah. I would say you would need, if you would think the size of your kitchen stove, you would need maybe 1.5 times the size of your kitchen stove for counter space.
It's not bad.
You have your grinder, the little thing that you dump your
waste bin.
Your pucks after you make espressos. And then we have some syrups and our sink to clean stuff. We have a regular standard fridge, but if you were going to go big, and you'd probably want to have like a bigger commercial fridge to hold more milk and stuff like that.
Yeah, I make multiple trips to the grocery store.
Yeah.
Buying milk, because we can only hold about 3 gallons of milk in our fridge.
Yeah.
We'll go through 3 gallons of milk sometimes in a day.
Just depends on
That's amazing.
the week. Weekends are busy, so it's probably 2-3 gallons. But then we also have oat milk and almond milk, so those are in there too.
Yep.
Yeah. How robust is your menu? Do you offer like a lot of different fancy options? Is it very straightforward?
We actually do. We have a lot of we have 3 different suppliers for our flavors, all like organic, small company. We like to use good products.
That's awesome.
Yeah, there are actual ingredients in all of them instead of sugar and chemicals. So
what's your best seller?
Salted caramel.
Oh, that's my favorite.
Yeah, that's a good one.
So if you wanted to get into and add this to a studio, what would be your recommendations for reaching out to different suppliers or finding somebody local, or where would you start? You found something used online, which is amazing. I like that. But where would you even recommend someone to begin?
If you're thinking doing lattes, you have to have an espresso machine. The number one brand of espresso machines probably in the country is Marzocchi. We don't own one of those. We own a Nuova Simonelli, which has been extremely reliable for us. It's not as known as a Marzocchi. If you go into a lot of the coffee shops, you'll see
it, yeah.
Really high-end espresso machines, and I assume that they're getting those because of the reliability. There's also a US-made company called Slayer. They make great espresso machines. I don't have any experience with them, but I hear good things about them. But Nuova Simonelli is what we have for our grinders and for our espresso machine. And it's an Italian company, and they've been flawless. They're not as known, but there is a lot of suppliers out there that you can go and research. YouTube is wonderful for researching espresso machines these days.
And I go into a lot of coffee shops and they have ours. So we're like, oh, we have that same machine.
So, I know, it's like once you own the thing, you start noticing it everywhere.
Yeah. It's fun.
We love our grinder. So we have a grinder that also tamps. I would say the biggest challenge when we first were doing it with our staff was tamping. So if you have the manual tamper, grinds come out into the little portafilter, and then you have to put 40 pounds of pressure to tamp. And teaching someone how to push 40 pounds, like we would have a scale and teach them and say, like, this is how it feels. But then you would see them over there, like with their feet off the ground. And I'm like, how much do you weigh? And I'm like, that's more than 40 pounds.
Right.
Or they're just barely pushing it. And then, you're brewing it and it's coming out in 7 seconds instead of 30, or 50 seconds instead of 30 because they packed it in there so hard. We were actually on a cruise one year and they had this grinder and they were like grinding it and then going like ka-clink, ka-clink. And I was like, what the heck is happening over there? And I was like, oh my gosh, we got to go get this grinder. And it's probably like a $4,000 grinder. Best investment ever.
Absolutely.
That's so funny.
Because
that brings me to my next question. If we're starting from scratch, right? And I'm like, okay, I want to bring this into my studio and I need to start thinking about a budget for this. I know it's different because you also got started so long ago. Could you kind of ballpark us at how much we would need to just start this?
If you have a local roaster, that takes roasting the coffee beans out of the equation, so that's beneficial for you. Espresso machine, you can get either a single portafilter or a double or triple. So that means how many heads are on the espresso machine. We have a 2-head espresso machine. We could get by with a single because we don't do a huge volume of coffee. So honestly, I think looking at a single head portafilter espresso machine is probably the way most people would want to go. A good commercial unit is going to be in the neighborhood of, I'm going to just ballpark here because I haven't actually looked recently, in the neighborhood of $5,000 to $15,000 for an espresso machine. They're not inexpensive, but the commercial units have built-in water supplies to where you're not pouring water into them. They have the ability to steam milk and things like that to keep up with the demand of a studio. So let's say if you had a group come in that needed 5 to 10 espressos or lattes, you have to steam milk and do all these things. Most of your $1,000 to $2,000 units don't put out enough power to be able to handle that. So you have to have a really nice commercial espresso machine that is wired to a 220, 240 volt power source to be able to keep up with demand. Think of it as like consumes a lot of power like a kiln. Everyone
right.
has kilns in their studio. So it's kind of the same idea. It uses a large amount of power to boil water, to steam milk and things like that. And it has to be able to do it continuously. And that's the biggest difference between the more pricey commercial machines and the less expensive machines. Grinders, probably in the neighborhood of $1,500, I would say, for a basic grinder. There's a lot of variables you can get into. You can get into like our machine is a manual where we have to do everything by hand. And they also make more automated machines to where it takes all of that stuff out of it. So a lot of the coffee shops you go into nowadays, they just push a button, it grinds the beans, puts them into the portafilter, brews the coffee, and then it dumps that into a internal waste storage. That takes all of the human aspect out of it. But those units are really expensive. Easily 15,000. So besides that, you're just looking at cups and supplies of, coffee beans and things like that. But those are very low expenses compared to the espresso machine in your roaster.
Sure. So maybe like 10 grand comfortably?
Yes, I would say at a minimum. Definitely having enough room to be able to do everything. You're probably looking at 10. You would be able to get by with that.
I have a silly question. Now, are your staff trained on the floor and the machines? Like there's no like one person for the coffee bar, one person for like it's all together.
Yeah, we never did a separate barista, but we don't advertise that we're a coffee shop. It's kind of like just a little add-on. We're kind of a little Huntersville secret. There's businesses around us that come in, and then we don't have it on our signage or anything. And then people will come in because that's word of mouth, and they'll walk in the door and go like, is there a coffee bar in here? Like somebody told us you have really good coffee, because it is really good. Like, I mean, he roasts our beans, and so they're like never more than a couple days old. Yeah. And it makes a big difference. I mean, we used to get them from a place in Durham that was only a 1-day ship, but then we would use those beans for up to like 2 weeks, because once they're about 2 weeks old, they're old. Like you can't just go buy old beans. Once you have this, you can't drink old beans anymore. Yeah.
I'm right there with you.
We go out and like the first thing we're like, oh no, this is old coffee. You can
We
tell.
take our at-home coffee very seriously as well, so I completely understand that.
That's so funny.
So let's say that I am like a walk-in customer, right? I've come in, I've got, my best friend, we're coming in to paint. How do I order? Is it like, do I go up to a counter? Do I order with the person that's helping me in the studio? What does that look like?
Yeah. It's right at the counter, same counter that you pay for your pottery and stuff at. And you can see it. Like once you round the corner, you can see the whole espresso bar. Then people know, but it's like, we don't do enough business to have a full-time barista. Right. Unless we wanted to actually advertise it. But honestly, we don't really have the space right now or the room for all of the supplies to do that, have enough milk and stuff for a day if we had a steady stream of customers. So we've kind of liked that we've left it like that. It's not obviously our main, it doesn't really add to our income. We've always kind of said it's more there for us than it is for other people. And if other people want to buy coffees, cool. Yeah. And it has gotten busier through the years. Yeah,
do you
it's never gone down. That's why we keep it.
Running a Fired Art studio is a full-time job, and finding time to plan your marketing can feel overwhelming. That's where the Contemporary Ceramic Studios Association comes in. As a CCSA member, you'll have access to a treasure trove of marketing resources, from customizable marketing graphics to monthly social media calendars and more. Focus on your business, while we help you promote your studio with tools that save you time and attract more customers. Join today and take your marketing to the next level. Visit ccsaonline.com for more information.
Yeah. Do you find that your staff is ever like, oh, I can't manage all the like kiln work and the studio work and
actually no. Most people are scared of it when they start. We've had a couple of people that have actually worked at coffee shops, and then they're like, I've used those before. It's a little bit different machine that they use. Like the one girl that actually works for us now that worked at a coffee shop, theirs was like one of those automated ones that you just push buttons. But she was like, this one's so much cooler. I actually, when we travel, if we go into a coffee shop and they have an automated one, we leave because I want to go to one that's like old school. Like I want them to make my coffee if I'm going to pay, $6, $7, $8, $9 for a coffee. I want it to be made. So I don't like those machines. And a lot of times they taste like dirty machine to me. So I don't like them. But,
so what is the pricing for your drinks? What are they like? Where do they start?
Ours are like $6 with no whipped cream or $6.50 with whipped cream. And then if you add an alternate milk, we add $1. That's the basic like flavored espresso would be with whipped cream would be $6.50.
Yeah, I feel like that's pretty average.
And it's a 16 ounce.
And I assume you're doing all takeaway and no.
Yeah,
like-
they're all in. Yep, all in takeaway cups.
Yeah, it's smart because that
Yeah.
takes away the washing of everything.
Yeah, we do have where if people bring their own cup, they'll save 50 cents. Like we can't do any washing of anything like that and
Right.
serve. We'd have to have a triple sink and with the wash basin and the full sanitation.
Right.
Thing,
Yeah.
sanitation floor and
What
everything.
kind of licenses or whatever do you have now, or do you need any?
You don't need it if it's all a non-prepared. So, I mean, it's a prepared food. Like we pay a prepared food tax, but it's not prepared. Like when we used to offer like these smoothies, but we weren't allowed to actually put fruit in it. Like if we wanted to put fruit, we could have opened like one of those, the kids' fruit cups from the store and then dump that in because that's like all prepared. But we can't take like a peach and like cut it up and then add a peach to it and make a peach smoothie. So it had to be all from like a concentrate mix.
Yeah.
So it'd be like the peach, the milk, and the mix, the milk and so anything that's like cut up food or anything like that, we can't do.
And same thing with having reusable cups. We couldn't do that because you have to have a full sanitation area to clean your cups and do all those things.
Yep.
And we don't have the space to do that. And that's a very large expense added to it.
Absolutely. Yeah. And more staff work and all that.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be more if you're really interested in turning like where it's a full-on coffee shop, cafe, and your studio. If you have the room for that.
I would think that other than looking at like the saving up the money for the equipments is getting a hold of your health department to find out, because I know that in Pennsylvania, I got somebody that came in here that worked for the health department came in and was like, you're selling pickles in your cooler that are packaged. And I thought since they were packaged, it was okay. But since it had to be a certain temperature for refrigeration, I wasn't allowed to have them. So I was like, I took my pickles and I put it in my fridge. I'm like, fine, they're really for me anyway. So,
yeah,
but
you definitely would have to check your state. Like definitely on
Yeah.
state levels, there may be different rules for even having a sanitation score. Like we don't have a A on our wall or anything. Nobody comes and checks us out because we're all takeaway.
So what have you learned from this process? I want to hear some kind of like struggle stories a little bit, if you have any. What have you come up against where you're like, ugh?
That's every week. It's mainly with flavor because coffee changes with weather. So you can have the exact same coffee today, and then 2 days from now, use your espresso machine, and then it tastes completely different. And it's all based upon how the weather changes. So every single day, you have to go in and you have to sample, and you have to adjust and calibrate and change everything. So that's my struggles that happen basically daily. I'll go in and make my coffee. I'm like, oh, this is sour. Or and you're like, this is not good. So then I'll go back and I'll start adjusting things to change it from coffee. You basically have either a sour, a normal, or a bitter profile. So you kind of try to get it always in that middle. The struggle daily is trying to balance that coffee flavor to where like, okay, this is the good coffee for the day. So, if you go away for a couple days and you come back, your coffee could be completely different than it was when you left, but the exact same beans.
Yeah, the employees don't know how to do all that. So he actually goes in there every morning, takes the beans. What do you waste? What, 2 to 5 pucks?
Yeah.
Trying to get it to the correct flavor.
Yeah, and that just is like, if you want to go down the coffee road, you really have to enjoy coffee. You have to want to learn the nuances of coffee, on what changing your grinder does, or what changing the amount of beans that you grind changes, or different flavors of milks. And you just have to be almost like a little chemist to where you're constantly sampling and tasting things. I don't think you could just put a coffee espresso machine in and then push coffee through it and then expect good return. When you first start, your coffee is going to be disgusting. I mean, you're going to drink it and you'll be like, what did I just get into? Then you start learning why. And then once you start learning why coffee tastes this way, then you'll start going places and you'll sample their coffees. You're like, oh, okay, they have this going on, or they're doing this. And you can almost tell sometimes where coffee comes from. In a general sense, it's not that easy to do that, but you kind of learn the different areas of coffee, and you really, really have to enjoy it. So,
we're learning that now more because he roasts it and he buys the green beans. And he'll buy them from, Costa Rica or Guatemala.
Right. That was my question. Like, what kind of roasts do y'all? Because now I'm getting like nerdy into it. I don't love a light roast, so talk me
That's
through what
so
you
funny.
have.
Right now we're roasting a Guatemala wash and a Costa Rican, which Sherry just brought up, and they are great. I added
Yeah, I
in
like
a little
that.
Brazil, and it adds a little too much zing to it. So I think I'll take the Brazil back
That's
out.
so funny.
But yeah, Costa Rican and Guatemala beans, you really can't go wrong with
Yeah,
either
they're
one of
good.
those.
Yeah.
Those are always a great bean.
Yeah, we went on like a vacation and took a couple of bags of that and just made our own little coffees with our little AeroPress. So we didn't.
That is so funny.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
We like our own roast.
Yeah, do you find that this process has like ruined coffee for you from other places?
A lot of places you can still get coffee
Yeah,
and it's good.
it's good.
Mhm.
Yeah.
There's no way I would drink coffee from like a fast food restaurant anymore.
Yeah.
Right.
Or
Yeah, we can't go to like a diner and just have them where they walk around and pour coffee. And we're
Yeah.
just
Oh,
like,
that's
what
funny.
is that?
I feel
Like,
the same way. Yeah.
It always tastes like
It's too
dirty.
thin.
We can tell dirty machine. We clean our machine every day. I've talked to girls that have worked at coffee shops and they're like, yeah, it's lucky if we clean it like once a week. And I'm like,
Oh,
what?
Lord.
You
It
learn
I'm
just
thinking
makes
all the
me not
people
wanna
that
go places.
Yeah, and
And
those machines are
it's
getting
usually
used a
like,
ton.
I mean, it's usually like chain places. So whenever we go out of town, we look for the little mom and pop coffee shops. And then we walk in, and if they have like good flavors, it's not like Tarani or Monin, I'll walk out if it's those too. Because I can just taste chemicals when I drink those.
Yeah.
Yeah, you do
So-
become a coffee snob.
Yeah. So we'll walk in a place and, I love the places that are like, they make their own. Like we went to this apothecary one time in Nebraska or something. Wyoming. And it was great. And then,
Yeah.
my daughter lives in Nashville and we found like 2 places there that we'll regularly go get coffee.
I have never felt more like a tea girl in my entire life right now. Because talking about roasting and all this stuff, I actually have no idea what you're talking about. So I usually just put something in my K-cup and I pull it down and then I dump a bunch of honey and creamer in there because I like it. Yeah. So I would say then if you're going to add this to your studio, your expectations of what you want and how, like, because if you have somebody that comes in, you're like, this tastes like it's from a Denny's or something, then you definitely want to have your knowledge before diving into that. So I'm learning a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we want to make sure that we put out a quality product and
do y'all
everyone
offer
that does come in and gets it, like, I can't tell you how many times I've heard this is the best cup of coffee I've ever had. One lady came in recently and she was like, you're just like a little hidden gem. Because this is like seriously the best coffee. And this lady just went and got a coffee somewhere else and said it was gross and brought it in. And she was like, this coffee is disgusting, but I didn't know you had coffee. And she was like, I'd hate to like spend another like $6 on a latte, but this is so bad. And I was like, I'll tell you what, if I make you one and you don't like it, I'm not going to make you pay for it. And then
nice.
she was just like blown away, like how good it was. She was like, that one's going in the trash. And then this one is just so good. I can't even believe it.
Nice. Do you offer any teas?
Yes.
We do.
Speaking of Christine, yeah. So you
Thank you. Yes. I'm coming.
Yeah.
Tea's great.
Yeah,
It's so easy.
Is it easy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we have chai, and I mean, we sell a lot of chai. I would say that's one of our most popular too. And we have a bunch of like all of our employees, they'll make mixes and we'll have the Maggie special and
Oh, cute.
the Quan and the Alley special. And they have like little mixes of things that they've put together. Yeah.
So it's
That's
not
fun.
a part of your branding from what you said earlier, but do you advertise any of this like on your social medias? Like when Allie does have a special, are you being like, come grab this? It's this.
Yeah. Every now and then, I guess we will put it on like either a post or a story on our Instagram. It'll be on our website. And it's on our website. Like we have our menu. We actually just started selling our beans. So we sell bagged beans now called the
That's really
Meg-Art
smart.
Espresso blend.
Wow, that's
So
a great idea.
Every now and then somebody will pick up a bag because they'll buy it and say how great our coffee is. And they'll be like, do you sell these beans? And then we're like, no. And then we're like, yeah, maybe we should.
Sorta.
So I bought some
Yeah.
bags. Now we sell
Yeah.
beans.
I know pricing is different for everyone. This is kind of like a dreaded question to ask, but how do you determine your prices for like if you wanted to sell the beans or if you wanted to kind of get into little extra bits?
Do you mean like to sell a latte? Or
Yeah, or all of it,
All of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess we touched on it a little bit earlier, but how did you get to that part?
Yeah, you have to take into account of the cup cost, lid cost, sleeve
Yep.
cost. Those are your disposables that you basically are going to send out with every cup, because you can't hand a person a cup without a sleeve because it's too
Right, it'll
hot.
burn them.
Those are all figured in. Milk cost is pretty stable. Whole milk is what we use. It's relatively inexpensive compared to high quality oat milk. So oat milk is more expensive.
One of the little things of oat milk are the same price as a gallon of milk.
Isn't it crazy? And are you
And then-
finding that that's the most popular milk substitute for y'all?
Oat is,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
Almond used to be, and now
Right.
we probably do half of the amount of almond than oat. Regular is still the most
Mhm.
used, and then it's oat, then almond. And we've tried coconut and a couple others, and it's just not worth keeping that many things. And then we
Yeah,
we
it's
only
expensive.
put whole milk in our fridge too. Like we don't get 2% or skim. We do the
I-
creamy and dreamy.
Exactly. I like to hear that too, as like thinking of if I wanted to put this in my spot, cutting out all those options makes
Yes.
it easier.
Yeah,
Simplify.
yeah, and simplify. And we only have one size. We don't offer small,
Oh,
medium, and
nice.
large. We don't have to have room for lots of different cups and different lid sizes and everything like that. It's
We
like
don't do
that's
decaf.
it. And no decaf.
Mhm.
Yeah, we only have one grinder. We have our
I
old grinder,
honestly-
but we still don't do it.
Right. I think that's really smart. Like a really
Mhm.
the biggest takeaway that I'm kind of getting from this is like start simple
Yeah.
and go up from there. Yeah.
Flavors are simple because you can
Yeah.
have 5 different flavors, and all it is a pump bottle. For the majority of it, yeah, keep it simple. It's going to be way less stressful to be able to serve an Americano or learn how to do a cappuccino or espresso or a latte than it would
Yeah.
be to try to learn how to do what.
Yeah.
Let's
I
say-
mean, everything just has 2 or 3 ingredients, really, if you think about it. It's the espresso, and then if you do an Americano, it's water, or
Mhm.
a latte or a cappuccino is just milk. So it's espresso and milk, just steamed different ways. And then if you add a flavor, that's your third ingredient. So no matter what flavor you're putting in there, even if it's a mix, I mean, it could be 2 flavors, but it's just the flavor. So
Yeah.
whenever we explain it to our employees, we're like, it's 2 or 3 steps. That's it. Like you give 2 ingredients or 3 ingredients.
in one
Yeah.
cup size.
And 1 cup size, and this is how you steam, and this is how you do this. So it's fairly easy to learn, and they actually really love it. Like all of our employees, like I said, once we teach them, I think that's one of their favorite things. Like somebody orders a latte, and they're like, "I want to make it."
Like, yes.
Yeah.
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 That's funny.
Yeah, but they're nervous at first. They're like, "Oh,
Mhm.
will you make this?" And
Well, it's just like the
then-
kiln,
then-
right? Everybody's nervous. Of the
Yeah.
kiln at
yeah,
first.
like
Everybody.
he went in the other day, and he said there was 3 people working,
Mhm.
and he said, "All right, guys, who's the best coffee maker here?" They were all looking at each other, and they were like, I would say probably like her." And then he was like, "All right, who's the next best?" And they were like, her. And then he goes, "All right, so you're making my coffee." So he
that's
picked the
so
worst
smart.
one and said,
Mhm.
"You're gonna make my coffee." And she was like, "Oh gosh, like I got to make a coffee for the owner."
Right.
He was the newest girl that has worked
That's
for us.
cute.
So yeah, it was cute.
But
And
she did
he
great.
did great. He
Good.
kind of walks her through it and has fun with it.
Yeah, and it's cool that you kind of like had them nominate each other. Like it really gets them
Yeah.
kind of critically thinking about
Yeah,
like
yeah.
the
They were
service.
like, "Huh? What?" Yeah.
Wow.
'Cause
Have you
I
had
think they probably thought he was going to have the best one make
right?
it.
Yeah.
Exactly. Switched it up. Have you
Yeah.
had any kind of notable customer complaints while over the years of this coffee bar?
Nope.
Can't think
Wow.
of anything off
Nothing.
the top of my head at all.
No,
That's amazing.
one lady said that doesn't like coffee, and she still comes in like every single Friday. We're up until midnight on Friday nights. And whenever we announced that we were going to put it in, because she's been coming in since like 1998, she was like, "Well, I don't like coffee and I don't like the smell of coffee. So if it smells like coffee in here, I'm probably going to stop coming." And I was like, weird. And
Yeah.
then,
That is weird.
yeah, so apparently it doesn't smell like coffee in there. But she still comes in. But she orders a hot chocolate every single Friday night.
That's amazing.
Which you
Yeah.
can make with your espresso machine.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
do the creamiest and dreamiest hot chocolates. That's what it's called, creamy,
I
dreamy hot
bet.
chocolate.
That sounds
Do
good.
you cut off service at any point? Like, if you're closing at midnight, you're like, okay, last chance to get one is 11.
Yeah, no, we'll do like, I think the girls will usually go around like 10 minutes before we close and just say, "Does anybody else want anything from the espresso machine? I'm about to clean it." And you really only need to clean the espresso part. So we could still make a hot chocolate or a tea, use the water part and the steamer. But once we clean that, then we won't make any more that day.
If we run out of milk and things, we just say that we're out for the day. We don't try to
Nice.
keep the stock going. So if we actually
Yeah.
go through all of our milk, we're like, "Yep, we're done." Or if
Yeah.
we're out of ice, we'll be like, okay, we're out of ice. No more cold drinks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we run out of ice because we just have a normal fridge that just has like the ice maker on the door.
Yeah.
And then every now and then, like in the summer when it's hot, like we'll take bagged ice up and then add a little bit more because they're obviously the more popular ones when it's hot out.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that thing just doesn't make enough.
Yeehaw, studio owners! Saddle up for success at the 2025 CCSA Annual Convention, happening September 5th through the 8th in Denton, Texas. This year, we're bringing cowboy country theme to the heart of the fired arts, and you won't want to miss it. Get ready for an action-packed event featuring over 35 industry classes designed to boost your business, an exhibit hall filled with the latest and greatest from top suppliers, plus social events where you can connect with fellow studio owners. And don't forget the grand finale, a boot scootin' gala and silent auction that'll have you dancing the night away. So dust off your cowboy boots and join us for a weekend of learning, networking, and good old Texas-sized fun. This is an exclusive event you can't afford to miss. Head to ccsaonline.com to reserve your spot at the 2025 CCSA Annual Convention, and we'll see y'all in Denton.
Yeah.
But if there's anything that I would probably change, it would be to get a bigger, more barista-like fridge, I guess, than just having a normal, house fridge there. It's gotten us by.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
I'm so impressed by like how unintimidated you guys
Yeah.
are by the whole thing. I know you've been doing it for a long time, but
Yeah.
you're just like, yeah, you just do this, and
But we
super.
practiced. Yeah, we practiced a lot
practice.
on ourselves. Like the very first
Yeah.
day I got it, I was so excited when I got it, and I started making espresso shots, and I was sitting there drinking them all. And
then your heart stopped.
and about 6 espresso shots in, it hit me like, wait a minute, I just did 6 double shots of espresso. This is not going
12.
to be good. Yeah.
Yeah, they were all doubles.
Wow.
Yeah, then we started inviting friends over. Like, who wants to come try our
That's
espresso?
fun.
Like,
Right.
and then they'd walk in here, and we'd have this huge machine on our counter, and they're like, yeah, what are you guys doing? And we're like, well, we're thinking about putting this at Meg-Art, so
We're
but
practicing.
we need guinea
Yeah.
pigs. So come and try our different coffees. Then we were trying to find a roaster at the time, and he looked up probably the 3 top small batch roasters in the country, and 2 of them are on the West Coast, and one was in Durham. So we used them
Nice.
because it was a 1-day ship instead of a 2.
Very
And then we used them
I
for
have-
probably a good 10 years until he was like, I think I might start roasting. And I'm like, okay.
That's so
You
cool.
So
just
cool.
Keep adding to it. That's awesome.
So, as somebody that, I mean, I've already said not a coffee drinker, but I want to add, because what you're doing is you're adding value to your studio, which is awesome. That's all what we want to do. Anytime we think about what can we bring to our customers to make it more of an experience for them, and let's be honest, make more money too. But what if you had, like, how would you recommend if I wanted to bring somebody else's coffee, as in if I wanted to have a coffee shop come in? Like, you can't bring their machine here. What would you recommend? Because I always wanted to do like a flight of coffee night, and I need some help with you having the knowledge of what you do with your coffee bar. How would I be able to do something like that, even if I wanted to reach out to a local coffee shop?
That would, without an espresso machine, that pretty much takes out lattes and things like that. If you want to do flights of coffee, you could probably get a local coffee shop to do, I would assume, some sort of to-go coffees and
Yeah.
quantities. I don't know. This is an area that I'm not very familiar with, but you can get different kinds of coffees from different places. If that's
That'd
what
be
you
cool.
mean. Yeah. Like,
Yeah, I just
No, you're
trying
thinking
to
like
think of-
different
Yeah, like-
places that the coffee comes from, like Costa Rica,
Yeah,
and
or-
Guatemala, and Brazil.
Or even, or like a pour over situation. You could, so that way
Oh,
it would cut
yeah.
out the actual coffee shop person, or
Mhm.
it would just be them, and it wouldn't be a complicated machine. That could actually be like pretty fun, for the
yeah,
Yeah, we have a pour over.
that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
just thinking, without me going to get a big machine, how could I add that coffee value at the studio? Trying to think of different ways.
I know some of the coffee roasting companies, they offer like a carafe service where you would just
Ooh.
grind and make carafes of different kinds of coffees at your studio. So you would just carry, they even supply them if at first, at least the one locally to us, they would give you the equipment to supply their coffee. And then you could just do the different origins. You could have,
That's cool.
so let's say 2, 3, 4 different carafes of coffee. That would be super simple to do.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
what was that
'cause-
again? I'm sorry.
That would be back when we
I'm pretty
opened.
sure, yeah, they did it.
It was Counterculture Coffee, and I assume a lot of the larger roasting companies do the same thing, but they supply you, I think it's called a bun machine, and it's just basically a commercial coffee brewing machine. It would brew up a carafe of coffee, and then you could have that for your customers. That would be a very inexpensive way to get into coffee.
Yeah,
Yeah,
kind of like
appreciate
when
that.
you go into like,
Cool.
I don't know, do you have Atlanta Bread or Panera?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yep.
you walk in and they have like the
Yeah, the
carafes of
samovars,
like,
yeah.
they'll have the
Yeah.
hazelnut and the light roast and the dark
Yeah.
roast and the decaf, and they're in those metal carafes, and you just pump the carafe and get your coffee.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
like regular brewed coffee. So we don't have any regular brewed coffee because we don't even have a coffee machine. We only have an espresso machine. So if we make you a coffee, it's
An Americano.
Americano. Yeah. So it's the espresso with the water. But they like, I think if you do that carafe system with like, I'm pretty sure it was counterculture when we were doing all of our classes. Like we actually went to counterculture in Durham and did classes. We did Espresso 101. We did Milk Lab. That was very helpful. I would recommend looking them up if you're near them. I'm sure other roasters do it too. We got a tour of their facility and it made us understand a lot more about coffee. They're very knowledgeable. And then
I think, and if you're on the West Coast, Intelligentsia would be West
like
Coast version.
go take some classes and make sure you like what it is. Because like I said, it's just like pottery. Like if you don't love your studio's not going to do well. If you don't love coffee, you're not going to care.
Yeah, you're not going to sell it.
Yeah. We started this because I feel like he had a little bit more of a love of the coffee. He wanted to bring something in that he loved more. Kind of married me in this business. So he's forced to love pottery. I think he does. He stayed with me a long time. I always say like the coffee's his thing, even though I do love it. Like I think one time he said something about, we don't make a huge amount of money with this. Should we get rid of it and make more room for the pottery? And I was like, what? No,
Yeah.
we can't get rid of the coffee. I was like, what would I do? Where would I get my coffee every day?
That's awesome.
I have a staff question with the coffee. Do they get like a shift drink? Are you monitoring how much they're drinking of it?
They get theirs for $4, and
Nice.
as long as they use their own cup. And then if they don't, they pay $4.50. So they can make any coffee they want, anytime, any day for $4.
Nice.
And a lot of them do. They'll come in the mornings. We'll see them walk in, make a coffee before we open, or on their way to something every now and then. And
That's cute.
they'll go somewhere else. And now that they've had ours, and they always go like, I went and got a coffee today at such and such place, and that is good. And I'm like, that's when I'm like, well, you can stop by. You have a key. And they're like, oh, I can. And then they start doing that.
That's
and
nice.
it's way
That's pretty
cheaper.
cool.
They're probably going to pay $7-8 somewhere else.
Yeah, we had to start charging because they were just wasting.
Yeah.
They would just sit there and make shot after shot after shot trying to do different things. And
Yeah.
we were losing a lot of money on coffee because the employees were just, they didn't have any expenses in it. So it was like free to them. So they were, they were just burning through all of our supplies. And once you start adding it up, coffee is really not that inexpensive. It's actually,
Like I would say we only make like $1-ish, dollar something maybe per cup.
Off that $6 drink.
Yeah. By the time you take now everything's even more, but the cup, the lid, the sleeve, the milk, the flavor, the electricity, everything else that goes along with it. And we don't buy cheap stuff either. Like the cheap syrups and flavors they're expensive. So
you'll keep this around, do you think? It feels like you've had it for this long. Like, why bring it out now?
Yeah.
Nice.
Definitely keep it. I like it. I like the add-on. I like that it's just, as somebody's sitting there painting for a couple hours, they're like, it'd be nice to have a drink. We have snacks too, like sodas and snacks, but I think it's just something, I think it does add value to your studio.
Yeah. You've mentioned YouTube for research purposes. You've mentioned like maybe finding a roaster, finding a supplier that would train you. Do you have any other places that you got information that you can remember if you could recommend to someone wanting to bring this in?
That would be you.
Yeah.
He's the researcher.
Honestly, I haven't really done a whole lot more researching lately because it's mainly just trying different origins of beans for me and roasting differently.
Yeah, his research has been in the roasting part lately.
I think you can gain a lot of knowledge from the roasting companies, because the roasting companies are the ones that their business is to sell you beans. If you're wanting to buy beans from them, they're going to do everything they can to educate you into how their coffees are different and then what makes their coffee great. That would be the probably the number one place I would go to is talk to roasting companies about their beans and then what would be required.
Yeah. And that's
That
how
makes sense.
counterculture was. Like, they're very particular on who they let, like, serve their beans. So they
Right.
had to come out and,
wow.
like, we basically had to take their classes, and we had to be approved, and we had to have an approved menu, which is the European more style than, you know, Americanos and stuff. And they had to approve our machine. So they wanted to make sure that if we were serving their product and putting their name out there, that
Right.
we were putting out a good cup of coffee.
It makes sense to me. It's
though.
just like our suppliers. Like
Right.
when we
Yeah.
win, they win. So they
Right.
want
Yeah.
everyone to win. Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow.
they'll do everything they can to help you to succeed at what you want
Yeah.
to do.
Yeah. They came out to our place. I mean, honestly, for a while, they had like this little lab thing in Charlotte, and we could go do testings or tastings of different origins. That was pretty fun. They closed that, but you can still go to Durham and do it. And I'm sure there's other things.
And then a lot of places, I mean, I'm not too familiar with them, but a lot of the larger cities have coffee co-ops to where there's a lot of small roasting people that do small batch roasting. That might be a great education.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
actually one here. It started as a coffee shop in Davidson, which is near us, and then they've branched out and they've opened several coffee shops around the Charlotte area, but they've also opened a roastery, which I think is in Davidson or Cornelius, which is in a town near us. And they roast and sell to coffee shops now. Like, one of our friends opened a coffee shop at Myrtle Beach. And
nice.
one day I was talking to her and I was like, "So where do you get your beans?" And she said that Summit Roasters, and that's right next to us. So I was like, well, that's cool.
Yeah, I think it's that thing where once you start paying attention to it, you really start to see this stuff everywhere, you know, and it's like when you buy a car and then you see that car on the road.
Yeah,
so that's the
it
truth.
It's very much that. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah,
Wow.
that's
So
true.
Christine, do you have any kind of last questions for Sherry and Scott while we have them?
I got to tell you, you made me feel more confident in this. So I appreciate your knowledge and everything. Like, I think that the first step I would do is find out what my Department of Health, is that right? Is that what I want to call them?
Yeah,
Yep.
Department of Health.
See what they allow, that kind of stuff. And then just like you say, like, start looking for some equipment. And I appreciate you. Like, you made me feel confident in this. Like, I could do it next month. I'm excited. So
Yeah.
No,
Everybody can do it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you
I
can
feel
do it.
very inspired by your
yeah.
go the simple approach. You know, it doesn't have to be as complicated or intimidating
Yes.
as maybe
No.
we think it
Yeah,
is.
yeah,
Nice.
yeah, and get yourself good equipment, just like anything.
And get yourself a Scott. How do we get one of those?
Get yourself a Scott, somebody else that can be by your side and
Nice.
talk to and tell you if
Cool.
you're crazy or not every now and then.
Well, I can do that for anybody if they want.
I was gonna say, I don't know if I want that. That's my problem.
Well,
But
nice.
he's a good supporter. I supported
That's
his coffee.
awesome.
Yeah.
He
that's
supports
so
my
sweet,
pottery
though.
habit.
Well, thank y'all so much for coming in and
Yes.
lending your expertise.
Yeah.
This is something that I think a lot of studios should look into. I think it could be,
Yeah.
like y'all said, really add value.
I think it complements it a lot. Like
Absolutely.
I don't know. It just goes with it. They're both like chill activities.
Well, thanks for
And
having
paint.
us.
Of
Yeah,
course.
it's
Yeah.
Yes,
And
thank you.
And if you want to see what Sherry and Scott have going on, you can go to Meg-Art.com. Is that your website?
Yeah, you could do Meg-Art, but you got to put the little dash between the
The
Meg
little
and the
dash,
art,
okay.
and then or
Okay.
megartpottery.com, all one
There you
word,
go.
no dash.
And you can find them on all the social medias. You guys have a fun
Yeah.
Instagram. Well, thank
Well, thank you so much.
All
Yeah.
right, yeah, thanks.
And
Thank
thanks
you.
everyone for listening. And Christine, you look incredible as always. Light of my life.
And
So good to see you
I'm gonna-
again.
Yes, and I'm gonna go and have a coffee in
Yes,
celebration for you
exactly.
guys.
Yeah.
So thank you.
All right, we'll
You're
see y'all
welcome.
the
Thanks.
next one.
Okay,
Bye.
Glazed Over is brought to you by the CCSA, the Contemporary Ceramic Studios Association. Thank you to our moderators, Amy Williams and Christine Steele. Intro and outro music by Scott Lester. Executive production by Louise Blazucki. Learn more about the CCSA at ccsaonline.com.